Kenya has a history of police brutality and lack of accountability for serious abuse.
So you want
That's Human Rights Watch.
You want to believe what Human Rights Watch said, not what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because...
Yes, my good people, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Guys, Kimani Ichungwa, the majority leader, and a close ally of William Samoei Arap Ruto, ameona kivumbi upande wa United States of America. Wakati ambapo huyu jamaa alikuwa anafanyiwa interview mbele ya Wakenya ambao wanaishi pale Amerika. Unajua guys, hii serikali ya William Ruto ni serikali ambayo ni corrupt zaidi, na ukiangalia hii interview ama ukisikiza jinsi ambavyo hii interview ilikuwa inaendelea pale, Kimani Ichungwa alikuwa anajiharia. Kimani Ichungwa alitense completely. Juu alikuwa anaulizwa maswali ambayo ilifika mahali ambapo akasema kwamba alilisi swali kama hii inafaa rais atujibu mwenyewe. Yaani kumaanisha ana boycott hiyo swali ama ana boycott swali ambayo imeulizwa ili William Ruto ajibu. Na yeye ndo alikuwa pale na represent William Ruto. Kimani Ichungwa ameona kivumbi. I want you to pay attention. Usikize hii interview jinsi ambavyo Kimani Ichungwa anajiharia mwenyewe. Unaona, kwa sababu zile maswali yalikuwa yanaenda straight yanamchoma. Straight yanamchoma. Unaona watu wangu? Juu Wakenya wengi walikuwa wanangojea hiyo interview, na ukiangalia kwenye comment section Wakenya walijaribu kutoka. Walitoka. Wanaongea maushiti against Kimani Ichungwa. I want you to listen guys. But before listen, ensure umelike video. Guys, I have been telling you that hii channel imekuwa ikisupportiwa na wewe na imekuwa ikishikiliwa na wewe, so sina budi ila nikusema thanks so extensive kuendelea kusupport hii channel. Na zile moments tena unaenda kuchukua kulike video, acha Mungu akupiganie na akutetee siku ya leo. Kwa hivyo guys, wale wageni ambao wanatazama kwa mara ya kwanza, ensure mna like hapo chini na mna subscribe video na mna subscribe ili tuwe familia kubwa tena zaidi. Kwa hivyo guys, without wasting time, I want you to listen to this interview, kisha tuendelee zaidi.
Convention against enforced disappearances.
Ratified very many international conventions.
But has he ratified the International Convention against He said he would do it straight as he comes to power. It's been 2.5 years. He could do it with a stroke of his pen. Why has he not done it?
He is yet to ratify, but it is
what are you waiting for?
Work in progress. Was there a timeline for its ratification, according to Mzalendo?
Many things had timelines on.
Was there a timeline?
He said he would do.
No timeline.
He said he would do a public inquiry into cronyism within 30 days. Has he done it?
Public inquiry?
Yeah, a public inquiry to establish the extent of cronyism and state capture and make recommendations. Page 61 of your manifesto. Has he done it? It's been more than 30 days. It's been 2.5 years.
I'll tell you, Mehdi, if you read the NADCO report, there are recommendations on what is to be done on state cronyism, on state capture, on extrajudicial killings. That is captured in the NADCO report.
But you haven't done what the manifesto called for on multiple things. And look, you know, and you admitted, to be fair, that people are unhappy. There's a perception of the government that's unpopular. Kenyans have been most upset about the cost of living. And yet, when thousands of young Kenyans took to the streets in protest of your government last year, the finance bill, your government opened fire on them, killed them, forcibly abducted and disappeared them. How do you justify such a violent crackdown on your own citizens in a democracy?
First, let me say this, Mehdi. As you said, because you never allowed me to answer the question on the promises kept. I told you the manifesto is being implemented chapter after chapter, right from housing to the cost of living that you're speaking about. Because, of course, you cannot judge what was to be done in 5 years, in a short 2 years.
Well, some of them you said you would do in 30 days, and you haven't. But just deal with the violence. How do you justify what happened last summer in Kenya?
Now I'm coming to that. You said the cost of living. I can tell you what we've done with the cost of living, from the subsidizing of production rather than subsidizing consumption, as we promised in our campaigns. You remember the first demonstrations after the elections in 2023 were about the cost of living.
Which also were greeted with violence from the state.
And unfortunately, all demonstrations end up with deaths, which is a very unfortunate incident. And it is not true that people demonstrate and you open fire. It is just the nature of what happens with our demonstrations, where they turn violent, and the police have to intervene. And let me say that at this point, it's not just unfortunate. We all regret the loss of life during the 2022 demonstrations and even the demonstrations of June last year. Unfortunately, that lives had to be lost, but it was not that fire was opened on young.
Yeah, the way you talk, lives had
protesters.
to be lost. No, lives were taken, right? People were shot in the head.
No life ought to have been lost, and nobody can justify the loss of life anywhere in the world out of demonstrations,
According to a
out of
Reuters
anything.
investigation, 19-year-old Charles Owino went to a protest, was killed with a gunshot to the head. The police recorded his death as a road accident. 21-year-old Shaquille Obienge, he died the same day as Owino, also shot in the neck. Police recorded his death as a road accident. If these deaths are so regrettable, why is the Kenyan police covering them up?
Fortunately, Mehdi, we have a very robust constitution in the country, the best constitution in sub-Saharan Africa. This constitution has very good and clear safeguards that make sure that everybody is held to account for your actions, including the police. You've mentioned 2 or 3 people. I think from IPOA's records, the Independent Police Oversight Authority, from their records, they have recorded about 60 deaths from last year's demonstrations. And there are some, I think about 30-something that are still under investigation. They have dismissed some after close the files after investigation. Therefore, I can assure you, the police may even somebody within the police force may desire
to cover up. Can you tell our audience
but
tonight how many Kenyan police officers
in the country will not allow you to
You
cover
say
up
that,
the
this is
death
great
in
rhetoric.
Kenya.
How many police officers in Kenya have been prosecuted for their role in the violence in 2023 or 2024? Can you tell us how many?
I'll tell you from the last year's demonstrations, 3 are already in court.
3 police officers have been prosecuted.
Three are being prosecuted.
Are being prosecuted, but none have been prosecuted.
Another 34 cases. Before you prosecute somebody, you have got to investigate.
So
you have to
this is what Human Rights Watch said last year. Bodies of people showing signs of torture continue to turn up in rivers, forests, quarries, mortuaries. The authorities have yet to investigate or prosecute anyone for these crimes.
It is their take, Mehdi. It is their take, and I didn't come here to give their take. I came here to give my take and the perspective.
So they're
from where
wrong,
I
you
sit.
think? The police officers are being held to account?
They are wrong because the police officers must be held to account.
But they haven't been.
And that is why we have institutions that will hold them to account.
So what you said today about the deaths sounded good. You said it's regrettable, there should be no loss of life. That's what you say here. What you say in Kenya is a little bit different. This is what you said in December about the abductions of young people. You said that they're a way for people to basically rig-con the system. You said these people, quote, they're not really abducted, you said, quote, they're locking themselves in Airbnbs with their girlfriends and hiding. Are you saying that all these abductions, Kenyan parents crying over missing children, bodies turning up in rivers, that's people pretending, hiding with their girlfriends in an Airbnb? Do you understand how offensive that sounds?
Mehdi, I was speaking in Bungoma County, and the context was the clamor for, there was the misconception that every other abduction in the country was being perpetuated by security agencies. But what I said is that we have laws in the country that people who are construed to have broken the law in terms of the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, if they are found culpable, the DCI or the police should and must arrest them and take them before courts of law, because that is what they deserve. And the police and security agencies have no business abducting anybody, and nobody should be abducted.
But they are abducting people.
By security agencies.
But they are abducting.
Allow me to make my point because you asked me a question. And it is in that context then that I said, and again, it is not all cases, Mehdi, that were out of abductions or what was construed to be abductions. And let me tell you, there were cases where people, somebody was holed up in an Airbnb, but reported himself as abducted.
But for you as a leading politician in the country, where people are...
There are reasons...
Wow, Kenyan politics.
Will you allow me
Please.
to make my points?
Please, this is just... I'm stunned.
There are reasons why Justin Muturi was removed as Attorney General around the time of the demonstrations in June of last year. There are reasons probably why Justin Muturi knows he's probably on his way out. It is him who has made those allegations. That is a matter under active investigations. As I told you,
has President Ruto denied it?
We have got, you will need probably to invite him and ask him.
You can't
I
speak
am not
for
President William Ruto, neither am I his spokesperson.
Has he denied it? It's a simple factual question, yes or no?
I have not heard him, and I don't know if he has been asked to...
So one of the... I just want to recap for our viewers, just to be followed. A minister in the Kenyan government has said that his son was abducted by the intelligence services and the president of Kenya had to intervene to release his son. You suggest the minister is lying and on his way out, but the president hasn't denied any of this happened.
I don't suggest. I tell you emphatically, the minister has reasons to lie.
Okay.
Emphatically. He has reasons to lie.
And he's on his way out?
He definitely knows it.
All right, Justin Mature, if you're watching, you may want to put your resume out there.
Let me tell you, Mehdi.
Okay.
Let me tell you, because it's all politics.
Even the abduction of his son is politics?
It is all politics. He's playing politics with a very unfortunate incident.
Let's bring in our panel now to see what they think about all of this. I'm going to go first to Irungu Houghton, who is the Executive Director of Amnesty International Kenya. Irungu, your organization has been documenting a lot of these abductions. You yourself, I believe, have spoken to some of the abductees and their families. Kimani suggests that this is kind of water under the bridge. There's no real evidence for now. A lot of it is politics. What's your view?
I mean, I think there has been a trend of targeting dissent, people who have protested in our streets, excessive use of force against people essentially just expressing the right to assembly. And in one case, for example, this young man was essentially held incommunicado. He was stripped naked. He was shaved, not just on top of his head, but in his pubic areas. He was interrogated ad nauseum about who his connections were, and all he had done was to post cartoons and artificially generated images onto the on his Twitter handle.
Images of what, can I ask?
Of the president in a casket.
Is that appropriate? Somebody makes fun of the president in Kenya and they get tortured like this?
When William Ruto became president, when the buck stopped at his desk, he took decisive action to end the extrajudicial killings that were happening. True, what Irungu says is true. There was a case of about, I don't know if there were 3 or 4 young Kenyans who were allegedly abducted, and it went out that
not allegedly. They were abducted.
They were abducted, as it was reported. They returned back to their families. There was one case where one of them turned back, appeared in a disco at night with a fully charged phone. So you need to ask yourself where
I don't understand what the battery power of phones has to do with
torture
and human rights in Kenya.
If I am abducted and kept incommunicado without a phone or anything, I do not expect you to have a fully charged phone and to reappear after 2 weeks.
But you deny they were tortured? I mean, Irungu just described horrific torture.
I am not denying anything if you listen to me, and please listen to me keenly, because as I said, Mehdi, there are cases of abductions. As to who is abducting people is a question.
They say the police. Am I wrong, Irungu? They saying security services.
They say so. The police say it is not us. So what do we do in a country with institutions that work? Allow the investigative agencies and institutions to investigate and get to check who has abducted who.
So on that note, I just want to bring in some more panelists. It's a good point to raise there. Awino Okech is a professor of feminist and security studies at the University of London, SOAS. Kimani says, what do you do in a country where the institutions work? And I want to ask you, do the institutions work in Kenya? Is there accountability? What is your perspective?
I think we must begin by recognizing, Mr. Ichungwa, that there's a huge trust deficit with the Ruto regime. You earlier on spoke about the fact that you're 2 years into a 5-year term. We're all employees. Some of us are employees. Your employer does not wait for you to reach your end of contract to tell you, have you performed well or not? We all have performance reviews and performance contracts. And I think the citizens who voted for you are saying things are not working. I do not believe that institutions are working effectively, because if I tell you that people are being abducted outside your house and you say it's not my people, then your answer should be to tell us who those are. You're not giving Kenyans any confidence if you say it's not the police, it's not the NIS, but somehow we don't know who they are. And we're supposed to automatically assume that that's fine since it's not the police and National Intelligence Service. Trust must be rebuilt, Mr. Ichungwa, if we are to trust the Ruto government.
Do you want to respond to Awino?
Yes, and I agree with her that trust must be earned, not actually rebuilt. You earn your trust from your actions, and that is why it is only right that we allow the institutions to investigate so that those who claim they have been abducted, because as I said, there are criminal elements that have been involved. And I remember last year, at the heat of the youth demonstrations in June last year, I think around July or August, if I'm not wrong, Bodies were discovered in a place called Kware in Embakasi, just outside the airport in Nairobi. And it turned out that somebody, some sort of crazy serial killer, was killing ladies and dumping their bodies there. Therefore, you can imagine what would have happened if we were all quick to judge and say, yes, these are protesters, young protesters, in the backdrop of what was happening then, who have disappeared and now their bodies are dumped there.
Before I go to our third panelist who's been waiting patiently, Ichungwa, very quickly, just comparing